All right, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? How is it going? I am istherenoonelse. In the video I'm bringing you today, I wanted to talk a little bit about a video I posted a couple days ago, talking about the tank meta. And apparently some people didn't understand where I was coming from with that. They looked at it as a bash on proc sets, which wasn't the point. I was just bringing up the conversation in the PT. Like, I saw multiple comments on the forums where they're talking about, we need procs to counter the tank meta. You know, we're in a tank meta right now. If we didn't have procs, we wouldn't be able to kill these people. And I think that's a ridiculous statement because there are multiple different facets for survival that need to be addressed. We currently have procs at an all-time high for damage, and people are still super tanky, so clearly we don't need procs for the tank meta. Clearly, they still exist with the tank meta the way it is. And so you need to look at things mechanically, defensively, how they function, and what you can do to make adjustments so that things are a little bit more in line. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, for me personally, I like a higher burst meta. I like higher damage. As much as I don't like procs, as much as I'm not a fan of the current conditionality of procs, you know, landing off of free to cast abilities, light attacks, and all this other frigate, it's just too easy to get the damage that you get. But I like the damage because nobody likes to be in a rugby scrum in a 1v1 for 40 minutes. It's not fun. I'd rather have the fight end than it not end. And that's my problem with the current meta is some classes you're not killing 1v1. You know, some classes you're not killing 3v1 because they have such high healing, they have such survivability built into their kit due to all these different mechanics that it makes it just not enjoyable to PvP them against them because of what they're having. And so on top of that, the game doesn't function well when a bunch of people are all in the same area at the same time. We already know this. Performance takes a really large dip, and so having a higher damage meta is better for performance because the fights end and people aren't scrummed up in the same area with a bunch of procs and conditions going off, bogging down the server. We've talked about this in the past, ball groups, all these other sorts of things. A bunch of people in the same area creates these issues. And the bags you guys are seeing, if you guys watched the video yesterday, he bagged me. I'm just saying hi bag. It's not a big deal. A lot of people take bags way too personally. Like way too personally. Somebody bags me, I bag them back. I don't know if they're saying hi. I don't know if they're doing it because they don't like me. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just gently saying hello back, guys. It's not a big deal. So, anyways, back to what I was talking about. There's a lot of different things going on with the current meta as far as tankiness is concerned. You have Stage 3 on death that scales with your high health. You have health-based heals that scale with high health. So you already have this built-in tankiness. The more health you have, the more on death kicks in, so it's harder for you to get bursted. The more health you have, the higher your healing gets. And then they came out with the potion passive to where you get 40% recovery instead of 20%, making recovery easier to come across, meaning that you can spam these health-based heals even more. Now, the biggest culprits are the Werewolf Howl, Arctic Blast, the Scythe can even be very effective. Most classes have some sort of health-based aspect to it, which allows them to, the classes that do can abuse procs quite a bit better, which is where you get these crazy high health classes with decent damage that, you know, are really annoying to fight that can still kill you because, you know, they have everything. And so you need to look at these and you need to go, okay, well, what do we address? And what I would do is I would cap health-based heals in PvP. I would look at them and I would try and give them some sort of range to where they're similar to what coagulating blood is or honor the dead. Put some sort of cap around there. Like, okay, once you get to about 30k health, you can stack higher health, but you're not going to get better healing for higher health. I have a 24k werewolf howl on my current werewolf build with around 40k health. Now, I get a 24k heal with a 40k health build, and you see all these werewolves running around with 50k and crimson. Now, how much healing do you think they have on that current build? It's crazy. It's so much healing. You can't really burst them because they have the 10% damage mitigation. They get 10k resistances. They probably are running higher health recovery with the Lessian, and you know they get a decent amount of magicka recovery with tripods. And so it makes this really hard to kill build. Even if you burst them down to 10k health, they're going to pop one howl and they're going to get a 20, 25, 30k heal on top of it, and you're going to have to start all over again. And so those types of builds are problematic. And then, like I said, it's not just werewolves, it's wardens too. Wardens are very good at, you know, abusing the current tank meta because of Arctic Blast, and they have a free purge. You know, Betty Netch gives them a lot of sustain. Also gives them a free purge, so any sort of damage over time effects to wear down on them, they just purge it for free. I know it's only one effect, but still, it does have an impact. It does have an impact when you have all the healing that a warden does with major mending, with Arctic Blast, and all those other sorts of stuff, and then you know, attach a free heal that's eliminating Siphoner or double dot poisons or whatever you're running. So all that stuff adds up. And so you put a cap on these health-based heals, and you make it to where it's a little bit harder to come across. Now, the other thing is they did do this 40% recovery. I don't think they're going to address it, but the more recovery you have, the easier it is to survive. In the past, people used to survive used to die because they get stam locked. If you guys remember, if you guys used to play back in the 1.5, 1.6 days, so many people died on Magicka classes because they ran out of stam. You had to be very, very careful on those specs because, yeah, if you got CC'd a few too many times, you were dead. That doesn't happen anymore in CP. I can't remember the last time I got stam locked on a mag class, even outnumbered 1vx. Normally I just die because I'm out of resources, not because my stam's low. But that doesn't happen anymore because of the recovery where it's at. I think that's part of a bigger picture, so I don't want to talk about it too much. I couldn't weapon swap here, so that's why you see my character is just stuck. I'm trying to weapon swap and it's not working. But what I would do after going after health-based heals, I would look at defensive and offensive kits. I've talked about this a few times. I think it was last year now, but it's a lot harder to dish out damage in a burst combination currently than it is to survive. And the example I want to bring up is cast times and ultimates, what they did to my boy Soul Siphon. Now, back in the day when we used to not have cast times on ultimates and everything was great, grand, and wonderful, Soul Siphon was a fantastic ultimate for small-scale PvP on a Nightblade. You had a little bit of support. If your team's getting jumped on, you could pop that ultimate. If you were getting jumped on, you could block cast the heal, and you would heal back to full, and your teammates would survive, and it would allow you to continue, you know, a fun fight. But when they put the cast time on Soul Tether, they also put it on Soul Siphon. And so it went from being a good ultimate to absolutely useless. The ultimate became absolutely useless after that, because anytime you're using a defensive ultimate, you know, anytime you're using your spell wall or your resto ult or whatever, it's because you have a bunch of people on you, you're at low health, you know that's what you need to do to survive, and you're block casting. You know, you're block casting your resto ult, you're block casting your spell wall, you're doing whatever you can to get to it so you get that reprieve. The minute they put a cast time on Soul Siphon, it went from a good ultimate to one of the worst ultimates in the game immediately. And so we have to look at, in my opinion, we have to look at cast times on ultimates and how they help a tankier meta. It's a lot harder to do an entire combination on somebody when you go in for an in cap and somebody javelins you while you're in the cast time. You can't block cancel it, you're stuck there, you're going to take a little bit more damage. And if you think that cast times on ultimates are good, if you do, that's fine. We disagree. It's not a big deal. But let me just propose, I just want you to think about this. What would happen to spell wall or resto ult if you put a cast time on them? Would you use them again? Just think about how much that impacts you. I don't think they would be used anymore. And I think they would be completely useless. I think resto ult specific, I think you could still get away with spell wall, but resto ult would be absolutely useless because anytime you see somebody using it, they're like dodge roll canceling or they're block canceling because they're almost dead, and they pop that and they get that, you know, the 6 seconds of reprieve that you get with it. If you put a cast time on it to where you had to stand there and pop it, you were going to die in that cast more often than not, and it would make an ultimate not good in PvP. And the point is variety. There's no problem with people running defensive ultimates. It's just identify the fact that it's harder to get combinations off offensively than it is to survive defensively currently. That's all I'm trying to say. And so I would look at those things. I would look at eliminating cast times on ultimates because I think that would also help a burstier meta. And I would up weapon damage sets. And I talked about this before. I would change the conditionality of some proc sets to where it wasn't as easy to, they're not just proccing off light attacks. I would up weapon and spell damage sets just so that they're more competitive. Health-based heals, and I would go after cast times on ultimates. Now, you have to be careful treading a line on these sorts of things because I'm going to bring up an example. Where if you go look back at Elsewhere, Elsewhere was so close to a great patch. It really was. Elsewhere is one of my favorite patches that ever came out. The problem with Elsewhere was Pirate Skeleton, Harness Magicka, and Healing Ward. And it, tell me if you've heard this before, but Pirate Skeleton was giving you major protection with really high uptime, making you very tanky. Harness Magicka shields were very thick with major protection, making it very tough to beat through. Harness Magicka was also carrying your sustain to where you could literally... I was running around with 900 mag recovery with infinite sustain. I had Harness Magicka and Ellie Drain, and I could infinitely sustain in a 1v8, 1v9 because of those two things. Harness Magicka and Ellie Drain was carrying me, and it allowed me to stack damage. So I had a very tanky class with high damage and high survivability. Does this sound familiar to the patch that we're running right now? Because it should. It's different mechanics, but it's still the same thing. Just builds that have way too much. And so what you do in those situations, in my opinion, is you go after a few of those things. I felt like if they just went after the sustain on Harness, and if they nerfed Pirate Skeleton's 30% in duration, which to where it is now, like Pirate Skeleton now I think is in a great spot, but if they did those two things, that playstyle would still be viable. But what they did is they nerfed Healing Ward, they nerfed Harness Magicka, they nerfed Pirate Skeleton, and they nerfed the shield size of Harness Magicka as well. So, like, the only time you see Harness Magicka anymore is on a Mag Sorc. That's because they have Hardened Ward. You can now stack 2 shields, which makes it somewhat viable on a Mag Sorc, but it's not super great on anybody else. So that playstyle has been nuked for over a year and a half now, which is too bad. And that's the problem when we talk about making these adjustments, is you don't want them to go too far. You don't want stuff to get nerfed to the ground, and I think that's why a lot of people get frustrated when I talk about these different things on my channel, because they don't want to see their stuff get nuked because it's happened before. Now watch this. This is a pro play by Scythe here. He bashes me out of the Volendrung, and then he pops in a movable pot, so I can't bash him. Yeah, I got outplayed pretty well there. I just thought I was going to get it, but yeah, well done. But yeah, you don't want to go too far. You don't want to go too far to a point to where playstyles are unplayable. You want to address the most problematic things. You want to go after the things that are the most problematic, and then you want to, keep classes with their relative strength. I think classes that are strong are just more fun. I think we can all agree with that. In my opinion, I would like to see classes basically where Stamina Nightblade is. Stamina Nightblade has a couple bugs, with Cloak, everything pulling you out of stealth with Cloak, but they have high damage at a cost of squishiness. You have high sustain and you have high damage, but you're a little bit squishy. If you get caught, you die. So it's a very cutthroat playstyle. You have to give something up on a Stamblade, it's fun. Some classes, like Stamina Warden and Stamina Necromancer, you don't have to give up anything. You just have everything. Stamina Necromancer, I have crazy burst. I can be tanky and medium armor. I have great sustain. I have everything on a Stamina Necromancer. And so classes like that need to be adjusted and brought down just a little bit so that they have some give-take. And other classes need to be brought up to where that, they have something that they can give instead of just taking from everybody else. So when I talk about this, guys, I'm not set in stone on any of these things. I'm not saying this is what we have to do. These are things that we have to do. There's, like just about anything in life, there's more than one way to go about solving a problem. There's more than one way. I'm just bringing up a few of them, and I think a few of these things getting adjusted will go a long ways. And if you agree with me, that's cool. Let's talk about it on the forums. If you disagree with me, that's cool too. Bring it up. Tell me what you think. I like having these conversations. I like talking about the state of the game. This is my favorite game, obviously. If I'm playing it with this performance, yeah, my skills aren't firing. I tried to weapon swap there, and I said, screw it. I'm just going to leap on them at low health into a pile of 10 people. But yeah, those are my thoughts on solving the tank meta. Those are the biggest things I would do. Health-based heals, defensive mechanics, and I would go after, I forget what the third thing I said. Oh, up weapon damage sets. Those are the 3 things that I would do. I wouldn't go after everything. I think the higher recovery really helps mag specs, which allows them to stack into more damage to make them more bursty. I think that's a very nice change. But I would at least address 2 of those things, and I would do small incremental changes from here on out to make sure that we can slowly get to where we want to get to. Because So often we're close to a good meta. We're so close to a good patch where things are going to be competitive and a lot of fun without a bunch of the bullshit, and then they nerf everything, and then we have to go back to the drawing board to find out, you know, all the BS that's going on. So I don't want that to happen again. I couldn't see Seabreak there. You guys see it's getting progressively more laggy in this fight. The first half of this fight was way different than the second half. But yeah, those are my thoughts. If you guys have any questions or comments, please provide in the section below. I will do my best to answer it. I'm going to do a couple more tests on this build. It's been working pretty well for me so far. I will probably be releasing this in the next week. So yeah, thank you for watching, guys. Have a nice day.